Trying to get a bigger deadlift? Watch this.
Our first caller is Nick from Washington.
Nick, what's happening? How can we help you?
Hi, guys. Thanks, as everybody says, thanks for what you guys do. Thanks for all the content. I've been listening to the podcast now for basically since the start of COVID. I found you guys. I have been training pretty much consistently for the last 4 years. I have been lifting for probably 24 years since I was a kid. My primary goal is to try and stay as functionally strong as I can. I love to occasionally lift heavy, but really wasn't for a long time until I kind of got into your guys' MAPS programs. I started back into some more heavier lifting when I started the anabolic program. Before that, I was pretty much doing the kind of traditional total body routine, 3 days a week, total body, some kind of push, some kind of squat, some kind of pull, some kind of hip hinge, some kind of core work, and then some kind of accessory movement, biceps, triceps, whatever I felt like doing at that point. Over the last year, I started anabolic about a year ago. And over the last year, so I went anabolic performance, I went back to anabolic, and now I'm on phase 2 of aesthetic. And excuse my voice, my son had a sinus infection, so I have been recovering from that. Anyway, in the first phase of aesthetic, I kind of have noticed this trend over the last few years. I was never a big deadlifter when I was younger, but my deadlift has always traditionally been lower than my squat. So during phase 1, I dropped the rep range down to singles in the last week of phase 1 for aesthetic, and I'd see what I could do. And once again, my single for squat was probably about 20 or 30 pounds heavier than my single for deadlift. I guess my first question, as a physical therapist, I see a lot of patients who have a lot of weird abnormalities, a lot of differences from either side to side or front to back. But is having that level of asymmetry from front to back, is that abnormal? And then second of all, if it's not abnormal, what can I do that wouldn't necessarily focus on just my deadlift that would still help bring it up to where it's at least even with my squat, if not better than my squat?
Yeah, it's so rare to meet anybody who has that, where that's the case. You normally are better at one than the other.
Yeah, it's not abnormal, but it's not common. So what I mean by that is the fact that your squat is better than your deadlift. It is definitely more common that someone can deadlift more than they can squat. But it's not abnormal in the sense that there's something wrong with you.
As I say, Justin.
Justin's like this.
Yeah, and it was mainly because of the practice and the amount of time spent on the squat specifically. Never even did the deadlift except for power clean version, which was a lot lighter. But yeah, like that took me years after the fact to start kind of building up my deadlift strength. And it was just basically mastering the technique of it and getting my body acclimated to, adding quite substantial more weight.
But still today, you're still a bigger squatter than you are deadlifter, right?
Yeah, still. Still I could outperform
there's like
it.
leverage stuff and different body shapes. So like if you looked at like the top level, like the strongest deadlifters, especially deadlifters that are maybe not small, so taller deadlifters tend to have long arms. They tend to have really long limbs, right? They also tend to not be very good at bench press, because bench press requires, or a heavy bench press.
I'm pretty much short arms.
Well, there you go. I was just going to say it. You probably have shorter arms. You have shorter limbs. And so you're probably built better to press and squat than you may be to pull, right? Now, the only time I would say this is an issue is if your deadlifts cause you a lot of pain and you have issues with your low back or your hips or something like that. But if there's no pain, I wouldn't worry too much about the fact that your squat is heavier than the deadlift, just because most people are the other way around. It's not that big of a deal. Now, your other question was, how can I do things that'll help me get better at the deadlift that aren't necessarily a deadlift? Well, yeah, of course you can. Usually squatting more will get you a better deadlift. But if someone like you, I would recommend single leg deadlifts.
Mm-hmm.
Single leg deadlifts are really good.
Unilateral work would be great.
and just unilateral work in general, I think would be really good for somebody like you. And then maybe something that would help work on rotation, maybe the QL a little bit, like windmills. Windmills might be pretty good for someone like yourself to see if you get the QL and core stability really good. That could translate over to a better deadlift sometimes. But other than that, I wouldn't worry about the discrepancy in the weight too much. It's not like you could squat 405, but you can only deadlift 105. That'd be really strange. They're close enough enough in weight to where, again, although it's more common the other way around, it's not that big of a deal. It's not something you can worry about. And it's not abnormal. It's just not common.
I tend to toggle back and forth depending on like my goal, right? Of what I tend to do more of in my programming based off of what I want, right? Mm-hmm. So when I'm chasing increasing my deadlift, I'm deadlifting more frequently than I am squatting in my routine, and therefore I scale back a little bit on my squatting, and vice versa. When I'm really trying to move my squat, I scale back on the deadlifting a little bit, and I'm squatting more often. That's a simple way to look at this too. Is just like if you are, let's say, front squatting, back squatting, and then deadlifting in a week, maybe I do 2 rounds of deadlifting and 1 of squatting in the week. So depending on what your routine looks like, I normally will interchange, and they both have such tremendous carryover that you're not going to like regress big time by doing that. You'll just probably get a little bit more emphasis on the one that you're doing more frequently, and so. And I love to toggle back and forth. I go on a kick for a while that it's like I really want to improve the squat, so I'm just doing that a little more frequently. And then other times when I really want to move the deadlift, and I just do that more frequently.
Yeah, besides unilateral work, I know one thing that really helped me because of that initial bit from the beginning, doing a deficit deadlift really and focusing on pulling from a lower position. Really helped me dig more weight up from that initial pull. So that was definitely a focus of mine that helped to improve the overall performance.
Not something I've never done. That would be a really cool thing to try and work in.
Yeah, give it a shot. Just go real light.
Just light. Yeah,
go real light when you start with that.
It's compromising.
That's an example.
And if you were going to move, knowing kind of where I've started from as far as you guys' programs go, if I was going to move from aesthetic into something that would kind of gear me in that direction, which one would you guys lean for?
Symmetry. I like symmetry for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll send that to you, Nick, if you don't have that, okay?
I don't. That'd be great. Thank you guys so much.
You got it, man. No problem.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks for calling in.
Go Niners.
Hey, thanks again for what you guys do. I have a 3-year-old little boy, so I hear your guys' stories about your kids growing up, and it's just been kind of fun, to hear your stories and to compare them to my own. And mine's been a little physical therapy experiment to see how he develops, and to hear your guys go back and forth too. It's just been a ton of fun.
That's awesome,
Thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Right on.
Why'd you say go Niners?
Because he's wearing a Seattle shirt. Dude. I know.
Oh, I see.
You're doing so well.
I know.
Hey, look, this is the shit that I don't care about. Yeah.
Obviously you do. You ask.
What's interesting about this? So if you look at like top lifters, for example, if you look at the world's strongest squatters, they squat way more than they deadlift. If you look at the world's strongest deadlifters, they deadlift way more than they squat. If you look at the world's strongest like overhead pressers, they overhead press more than they bench press. So this stuff gets kind of weird when you look at those top levels, not because necessarily they train a specific way, although that's part of it. The other part of it is sometimes your body is built
100%
in a way that makes you better.
That gives you advantages.
Yeah, like
deadlifting is way easier for me than squatting.
Yeah, I'm definitely built to pull things.
You guys crush me.
Yeah, I can row and pull and do pull-ups with significantly more weight than I can pressing or squatting, just the way my body is built.
I squatted longer than I deadlifted. I've been squatting a lot longer than I deadlifted. I barely got into deadlifting not that long ago and progressed really quick just because I have
built more for it.
I'm built better for it. So it's very normal for somebody to have one that they're stronger than the other. But I mean,
it's usually the other way around, though.
But don't you guys just, I mean, I focus on one more than the other always in my routine. Sometimes I'm on a squat kick, and so my routine looks a little more heavily around squats. Other times I'm on a deadlift kick, and it's just more. And then you brought up things like deficit deads. So that's how my frequency of deadlifting increases. But then one day is like the heavy hard training, and then other days I'm doing things like deficit deads or single leg deadlifts, like things that aren't as taxing as heavy deadlifts.
You can build volume and also like add some technique and really focus on.
And I always see great movement in that category when I focus like that.